Ottawa is Canada's capital, a riverside city of just over 1 million people in southern Ontario, where the Ottawa and Rideau rivers meet and the country runs its government. It sits at the eastern edge of Ontario, directly across the water from Gatineau, Quebec, forming a bilingual metropolitan area of around 1.5 million people. That makes Ottawa the fourth largest metro area in Canada, smaller and calmer than Toronto or Montreal, but denser with national institutions than anywhere else in the country. This is a planned capital, not an accidental one. The federal government, dozens of foreign embassies, and a cluster of national museums define its character. For a visitor, that translates into an unusually high concentration of museums and historic sites packed into a compact, walkable core. The setting is gentle. Ottawa sits at about 70 meters of elevation on mostly flat terrain, with the Rideau Canal threading right through downtown. Ottawa is well connected by road. Montreal is about 2 hours east, Kingston roughly 2 hours south, and Toronto around 4.5 hours by highway. The real trade-off is climate. Ottawa is one of the coldest capital cities on Earth, with deep winters that run from December through March. Summers swing the other way, warm and green, with comfortable highs through the mid-20s Celsius, the mid-70s Fahrenheit. The city is thoroughly bilingual. English is dominant on the Ontario side, but French is everywhere, and you will hear both constantly. Ottawa rewards a specific kind of traveler. History buffs, museum lovers, and families get the most out of what the city does best. It rewards slow, curious travel more than nonstop action. Ottawa is calm and government-paced, not a city that runs all night. The sweet spot is a focused 3 to 4 day trip. That is enough to cover the major museums, Parliament, and the canal without rushing. A weekend works if you stay tightly downtown. A full week makes sense only if you add day trips into the Ottawa Valley and Gatineau Park. One fact captures the appeal. Ottawa holds the largest concentration of national museums in Canada, most within a short ride of the Rideau Canal. Most visitors arrive through Ottawa Macdonald Cartier International Airport, about 12 to 15 kilometers south of downtown. Getting from the airport into the city changed recently. As of early 2025, the O-Train light rail now runs directly to the terminal. The airport rail link connects to South Quays Station, where you transfer to the Trillium and Confederation lines to reach the downtown core. That ride takes roughly 40 to 50 minutes and costs a standard transit fare of about $4 Canadian at this time. For speed, a taxi or rideshare is faster, around 20 to 30 minutes, with fares typically between 25 and 45 Canadian dollars. If you are driving in, Ottawa sits on Highway 417, the main route through the region, with easy approaches from every direction. The Montreal approach is the easiest, a flat 2-hour run, while arrivals from the west should budget a longer day on the road. Once you are in the city, the car question is simple. For a downtown-focused trip, a car is optional and often a liability. The core attractions, Parliament, the canal, the Byward Market, and most museums sit within a tight, walkable district near the river. Downtown Ottawa is very walkable. Most central hotels put Parliament Hill and the market within a 10 to 15-minute walk. The backbone of transit is the O-Train, a 2-line light rail system supported by the city's bus network, OC Transpo. A single transit fare runs about $4 Canadian, and a day pass is around $12, paid at the gate by card, phone, or the regional transit card. The Confederation line runs east to west through downtown, while the Trillium line covers the north-south corridor toward the airport. Rideshare is easy to find. Uber and Lyft both operate across the city, with most in-town trips landing between 10 and 20 Canadian dollars. Ottawa is also one of Canada's better cycling cities. An extensive network of riverside pathways connects the canal, the parks, and the core. If you do drive, downtown parking is available, but adds up over a few days, so weigh it against transit for a central stay. For a day trip beyond the city, a car helps. Gatineau Park and the Ottawa Valley are far easier to explore with your own wheels. The verdict on getting around is clear. If your trip centers on downtown, skip the rental and rely on the train, your feet, and the occasional rideshare. Ottawa's lodging splits into a handful of clear zones, and for most first-time visitors, the choice comes down to two central ones. The first is the Byward Market, the historic quarter just east of Parliament, and the most lively place to base yourself. The market puts you steps from restaurants, bars, beaver tail stands, and the National Gallery, with most sites within a 10-minute walk. The trade-off is noise. The market is the city's nightlife hub, so weekend evenings can get loud around the bars and patios. The Andaz Ottawa Byward Market anchors the upscale end here, while smaller boutique and chain options fill in around it. The second core option is downtown, also called Centertown, the business district wrapped around Parliament Hill and the canal. Downtown trades the market's buzz for quiet evenings and easy access to Parliament, the museums, and the main transit lines. This is where the grand hotels sit, including the landmark Fairmont Chateau Laurier beside the canal and the historic Lord Elgin. Chain reliability is strong downtown, with the Westin, Marriott, Sheraton, Delta, and several Hilton properties all within a few blocks. For a quieter, more local feel, the Glebe sits just south, a leafy residential neighborhood along the canal near Lansdowne Park. The Glebe trades walk to Parliament convenience for charm and calm, but it is a short transit ride or pleasant canal stroll from downtown. Sandy Hill, east of the market near the University of Ottawa, offers bed and breakfasts and lower rates in a residential setting. Across the river in Gatineau, Quebec, you will find resort-style options like the Hilton Lac Leamy, paired with a casino and spa. On price, budget hotels typically run around 100 to 120 Canadian dollars a night. Mid-range hotels generally land in the 150 to 200 Canadian dollar range, with upscale rooms climbing into the high 200s. Budget travelers have a memorable option. The St. Lo Ottawa Jail Hostel is a converted 19th century jail with dorm beds around $45. For families, downtown or the Glebe work best, offering space, quiet, and quick access to the museums and the canal. For couples and nightlife, the Byward Market wins. For budget and a local feel, look to Sandy Hill or across the river in Gatineau. One note on loyalty programs. The major chains downtown make Ottawa an easy city to redeem points, with Marriott and Hilton especially well represented. Ottawa's attractions concentrate around one idea. This is the country's capital, so its biggest sites are national institutions, and the civic landmarks are free even when the museums charge admission. Start where the city does, at Parliament Hill, the Gothic revival seat of Canada's government overlooking the Ottawa River. The grounds are free to walk, and free guided tours run year-round, though the main center block is closed for a long-term restoration. Time your visit for late morning. In summer, the changing of the guard ceremony brings full pageantry to the lawn in front of the buildings. Just below Parliament runs the Rideau Canal, a UNESCO World Heritage Site and the real spine of the city. In summer, the canal is for boating and biking, lined with pathways. In winter, its frozen surface becomes a skating highway through downtown. That skating surface, the Rideau Canal Skateway, stretches nearly 8 kilometers through the heart of downtown when the ice is thick enough. Ottawa's deepest strength is its museums, and the cluster of national collections is the main reason to visit. The National Gallery of Canada sits beside the river, its glass and granite tower holding the country's premier art collection. Reviews are consistently strong, and the giant bronze spider sculpture out front, named Maman, has become one of the city's signatures. Across the river in Gatineau stands the Canadian Museum of History, the most visited museum in the country. Its grand hall of totem poles makes it a natural half-day, and the view back toward Parliament is the best in the city. The Canadian War Museum traces the nation's military history through powerful, sober exhibits and draws some of the highest visitor ratings in Ottawa. The Canadian Museum of Nature fills a castle-like heritage building with dinosaur skeletons, a blue whale, and a standout mineral gallery. Museum admission is modest, generally in the 15 to 25 Canadian dollar range for adults, with discounts for children and families. Several of the national museums also offer free or reduced admission for a few hours one evening each week, so check before you go. Budget 2 to 3 hours for each major museum and know that a single full day rarely covers more than 2 of them well. 2 more reward-specific interests. The Royal Canadian Mint offers tours where you can hold a real gold bar, and the Bank of Canada Museum is free and surprisingly hands-on. Between the museums sits the Byward Market, one of Canada's oldest public markets, dating to the 1820s. It is equal parts food hall, farmers market, and nightlife district, and it is the place that made the beavertail pastry famous. A short walk away, Notre Dame Cathedral Basilica anchors the skyline with twin spires and a richly decorated interior, and entry is free. For a quieter stop, Rideau Hall is the Governor General's official residence, with free grounds and free tours of the staterooms. Nearby, the riverfront lookout beside the National Gallery offers the postcard view across to Parliament and the Museum of History. Ottawa is unusually green for a capital, and its outdoor sites make a strong third category alongside government and museums. The biggest is Gatineau Park, a vast tract of forest, lakes, and ridges just 15 minutes across the river in Quebec. In autumn, the park's hardwood forests turn brilliant orange and red, drawing leaf peepers from across the region for a few peak weeks. Closer in, Dow's Lake and Commissioners Park sit along the canal and host the spring tulip displays the city is famous for. Those tulips are a living gift. The Netherlands has sent bulbs to Ottawa every year since the Second World War, and they bloom each May. Families have an unusually deep bench here since several national museums are built around hands-on learning for kids. The Canada Aviation and Space Museum lets children walk beneath real aircraft, and the Science and Technology Museum is built for interactive play. The Canadian Children's Museum, inside the Museum of History, is designed entirely for younger visitors and earns excellent reviews. For animals and the outdoors, the Canada Agriculture and Food Museum runs a working farm right inside the city, with barns and tractors. With the major sites mapped, here is how to sequence them, starting with a classic first-timer route over 3 days. Day 1 of the first-timer route starts at Parliament Hill at opening, with an hour on the grounds and a tour if one is running. From there, walk 10 minutes to the Byward Market for lunch. Then spend the afternoon at the National Gallery, just up the street. Day 2 crosses the river in the morning to the Canadian Museum of History, allowing 3 hours for the Grand Hall and History Galleries. After lunch with the Parliament View, return downtown for the Canadian War Museum, then an early evening walk along the Rideau Canal. Day 3 opens at the Canadian Museum of Nature when it unlocks at 10, then finishes with the tulips at Dow's Lake or a Gatineau Park drive. For museum-focused travelers, Ottawa can fill 2 dense days built entirely around its national collections. The museum route flips the order, opening at the National Gallery first thing, breaking for lunch, then giving the afternoon to the War Museum. Day 2 gives the full morning to the Museum of History across the river, then the afternoon to the Nature Museum back downtown. If a third day is available, add the Aviation and Space Museum and a Royal Canadian Mint tour for a change of pace. For families, the itinerary shifts toward hands-on museums and open green space to keep younger travelers engaged. Day 1 combines the Children's Museum and the Museum of History in the morning, with an afternoon along the canal pathways. Day 2 heads to the Aviation and Space Museum, then the Agriculture and Food Museum's farm, which younger kids tend to love most. Outdoor-focused visitors should anchor their trip on Gatineau Park, ideally over a full day with a packed lunch. Spend the morning on the park's lookouts and trails, then cool off in the afternoon at one of its lakes in summer. Back in the city, the canal pathways and Dow's Lake make an easy evening of cycling or skating, depending on the season. Beyond the city, the Ottawa Valley opens up. The village of Wakefield, just north in Quebec, makes a scenic half-day by car. Booking is rarely a barrier here. Most museums sell tickets at the door, though timed entry helps on summer weekends and during tulip season. Ottawa's food scene punches above its size, shaped by its bilingual setting and one of the most diverse immigrant populations of any mid-sized Canadian city. Two foods define the city more than any others, and the first, surprisingly, is shawarma. Ottawa has an outsized Middle Eastern community, and locals treat the cheap, garlicky shawarma wrap as an unofficial city dish. The second is the beaver tail, a fried, flat pastry dusted with cinnamon and sugar that was made famous in the Byward Market. The market is the heart of the food scene, a dense cluster of restaurants, stalls, cafes, and bakeries within a few walkable blocks. For sit-down dining, the market and nearby Elgin Street hold the highest concentration of well-reviewed restaurants in the city. Two other districts specialize. Preston Street is Ottawa's Little Italy, while Somerset Street anchors a compact Chinatown just west of downtown. Canadian comfort food is everywhere, led by poutine, the dish of fries, cheese curds, and gravy that crosses easily from neighboring Quebec. The Quebec influence runs deep on the plate, from tourtière meat pie to maple taffy poured over snow at winter festivals. For a classic diner experience, the Elgin Street Diner serves poutine around the clock and has become a local institution. Beer drinkers are well served. The Ottawa Valley has a strong craft scene, and brew pubs pour local pints across the downtown core. History lovers can drink in it too. The Chateau Lafayette in the market, known as the Laff, has poured since 1849. For something refined, afternoon tea at the Fairmont Chateau Laurier is a long-running Ottawa tradition in a grand setting. Now the price reality, which is gentler than Toronto or Montreal across every tier. A quick, casual meal, like a shawarma wrap or a market lunch, runs about 10 to 18 Canadian dollars per person. Dinner for two at a solid mid-range restaurant with mains and a drink each typically lands around 80 Canadian dollars. At the upscale end, expect well over $100 per person once wine and multiple courses are involved. Coffee culture is healthy, with independent cafes pouring a $5 to $6 latte alongside the usual national chains. Breakfast is the one gap worth planning around, since many of the best spots sit in the market rather than beside the big hotels. If breakfast matters, base yourself near the Byward Market, where bakeries like Artisan open early with strong coffee and fresh bread. Vegetarian and vegan options are easy to find, especially around the market, Elgin Street, and the university area in Sandy Hill. Halal food is widely available, a natural fit given the city's large Middle Eastern community and its shawarma-heavy food culture. Two sweet local notes round things out. The butter tart is an Ontario staple, and Nanaimo bars turn up in nearly every bakery case. For a hearty bite, look for the pea meal bacon sandwich, a Canadian take on back bacon served on a soft roll. The overall verdict on food is straightforward. Ottawa is strong on diversity and value, with shawarma and comfort food as its calling cards. It is less of a fine dining destination than Montreal, but for everyday eating, the quality-to-price ratio is among the best in the region. Ottawa is a noticeably affordable capital, especially measured against Toronto, and your daily budget depends mostly on lodging and dining choices. The single biggest advantage is that many of the city's marquee sites, Parliament, the Canal, Rideau Hall, and the parks, are completely free. That keeps activity costs low and means more of your budget goes toward where you sleep and eat. At the budget tier, plan on roughly 100 Canadian dollars a day per person, about 75 US dollars. That covers a hostel dorm near $45, cheap eats, transit, and the city's many free landmarks. The moderate tier runs closer to 165 Canadian dollars a day, around 120 US dollars. That buys a mid-range hotel split or a private room, sit-down meals, transit, and the occasional paid museum or tour. The comfortable tier sits near 275 Canadian dollars daily, roughly 200 US dollars per person. At that level, you are in a nice downtown hotel, eating well, taking taxis, and adding paid experiences without much thought. Online items, lodging is the swing factor, from $45 dorms to mid-range hotels near $180 a night. Food scales cleanly, from $10 shawarma lunches to $80 dinners for two at the mid-range. Transit is cheap and predictable, with single fares near $4 and a day pass around $12. The category that can spike is dining out for every meal, which adds up faster than lodging at the moderate tier. Compared to Toronto, Ottawa generally runs cheaper on hotels and dining, often by a meaningful margin for similar quality. The mix of free civic landmarks and modestly priced museums is the budget cheat code. Few capitals let a family fill 3 days this affordably. If these figures are a few months old by the time you watch, treat them as ranges and confirm current rates before you book. Ottawa has 4 sharply distinct seasons, and choosing when to visit changes the experience more here than in most Canadian cities. Summer is the peak, and for good reason. July highs sit near 27 degrees Celsius, about 81 Fahrenheit, with warm evenings. June and August are nearly as pleasant, with highs in the mid-20s Celsius, the mid-70s Fahrenheit, and long daylight. Summer also brings the festival calendar, anchored by Canada Day on July 1st, the country's largest celebration, held right on Parliament Hill. An annual blues festival in July and a jazz festival in late June fill the city with outdoor concerts through the warm months. The trade-off in summer is crowds and higher hotel rates, especially around Canada Day, when downtown books up well in advance. Spring is the signature shoulder season, built around the Canadian Tulip Festival in May. May highs reach about 19 degrees Celsius, near 67 Fahrenheit, as millions of tulips bloom along the canal and at Dow's Lake. Fall is the quieter, and arguably the best value window for a visitor who wants comfortable weather. September stays mild, with highs around 22 degrees Celsius, about 72 Fahrenheit, and thinner crowds than summer. October cools quickly into the mid-teens Celsius, the high 50s Fahrenheit, but rewards you with brilliant fall color in Gatineau Park. Winter is the toughest season, and also a real reason some travelers come specifically. January and February are brutally cold, with daytime highs around -5 degrees Celsius in the low 20s Fahrenheit. Overnight lows routinely drop below -14 degrees Celsius, near 6 Fahrenheit. So winter visits demand serious cold weather gear. But winter is when the Rideau Canal freezes into the world's largest skating rink, the centerpiece of the Winterlude Festival. Winterlude, held across February weekends, brings ice sculptures, skating, and maple taffy, and it is the one reason to embrace the cold. The shoulder months of April and November are the weakest windows, often gray, wet, and caught between seasons. In April, the snow is melting and the tulips have not arrived. In November, the color is gone and the canal has not frozen. Daylight also swings hard. December is the darkest stretch, while June and July deliver long, bright evenings well past 9 o'clock. If you want one clear recommendation, aim for late spring or early fall. when the weather is comfortable and the crowds thin out. Come in May for the tulips, in July for the festivals and Canada Day, or in February only if winter is the whole point. A handful of practical details will make an Ottawa trip smoother, starting with entry, money, and connectivity. Canada asks most overseas visitors to get an electronic travel authorization online before flying, while citizens of the United States need only a valid passport. The currency is the Canadian dollar, and you will rarely need cash, since cards are accepted almost everywhere. Contactless payment is universal. Tapping a card or phone works for transit, taxis, market stalls, and nearly every shop and restaurant. Tipping follows the North American norm, which can surprise visitors from elsewhere. 15 to 20% is standard at sit-down restaurants. Payment terminals will often prompt you for 18, 20, or 25%, but 15% remains a perfectly acceptable baseline. On power, Canada uses the North American flat two-prong plug at 120 volts, the same as the United States. Visitors from Europe, Asia, or Australia will need a plug adapter, and dual voltage devices are essential for anything with a heating element. Connectivity is excellent across the city, with reliable high-speed mobile coverage and fast Wi-Fi standard in hotels and cafes. For longer stays, a local SIM or an eSIM is easy to set up, with 30-day data plans starting around $35 Canadian dollars. Language is the detail that surprises first-time visitors most. Ottawa is officially bilingual, and you will see and hear both English and French constantly. English dominates on the Ontario side, and you can travel entirely in it, but a few French phrases go a long way across the river. Safety is a genuine strength. Ottawa is one of the safest large cities in Canada, with low rates of both violent and petty crime. The usual common sense applies in the market's nightlife blocks late at night, but there are no areas a visitor needs to avoid. Etiquette is low stakes and familiar. Canadians value politeness, orderly lines, and a quick thank you to drivers and staff. Cannabis is legal nationwide, but public smoking rules mirror tobacco, so it is restricted near doorways, patios, and parks. Packing for Ottawa depends almost entirely on the season, and the city's wide temperature swing is the thing to plan around. Clothing is the first and most important category, and what you bring changes completely between summer and winter. For a winter trip, pack a heavy insulated parka, thermal base layers, a warm hat, and insulated gloves without exception. For summer, switch to light, breathable clothing, but always add a layer and a rain shell for cool evenings and frequent showers. Footwear is the second category, and it matters more here than in milder cities. In winter, you need truly waterproof, insulated boots with grip, since sidewalks and the canal turn to packed snow and ice. In the warmer months, comfortable walking shoes are essential, since a good day in Ottawa easily covers several kilometers on foot. Gear is the third category, and a few small items make any season easier. Bring a day pack for the museums, a refillable water bottle, a portable charger for long sightseeing days, and a compact umbrella. Winter visitors should add hand warmers and a thermos, while skaters can rent gear at the canal rather than haul their own. One health note rounds it out. Ottawa's winter air is extremely dry, so lip balm and moisturizer are well worth packing. So where does Ottawa land as a destination, and who should actually put it on the calendar? Ottawa is, at its core, a capital built for people who like to learn something while they travel. It is best for history and museum lovers, who will find more national collections within reach here than anywhere else in Canada. It is excellent for families with hands-on museums, free attractions, and safe, green, walkable space at the center of the city. It suits festival goers and outdoor travelers too, between Canada Day, Winterlude, the Tulips, and Gatineau Park just across the river. It is also a strong value capital, generally cheaper than Toronto or Montreal for hotels, dining, and the things that fill your days. Ottawa is less ideal for travelers chasing a buzzing nightlife scene or the constant energy of a big, fast metropolis. It is also a tough sell in the depths of winter, unless skating the canal and winterlude are exactly what you came for. The bottom line is that Ottawa rewards curiosity over spectacle, and a focused 3 to 4 day trip is the sweet spot. If you want a clean, walkable, affordable capital packed with world-class museums and history, Ottawa is well worth the trip. That's our guide to Ottawa, Canada. Everything mentioned is linked in the description below. If you are planning another trip, we have more guides waiting for you. And if you haven't yet, subscribe so you don't miss the next one. Thanks so much for watching.